Hi, I'm Srikanth and I'm a developer in Rollbase. So I've already created a video for configuring SAML with Rollbase private instance. Uh, this tutorial will be configuring Rollbase with a different IDP. Uh, it's the Okta IDP. Uh, since Okta is highly used by many people, we thought of making a video for it. If you want a detailed video of how to set up SAML with Rollbase, you can just search for configuring SAML with Rollbase. Just give me a minute. Yes, so SAML with Rollbase, you can see the first link. In this link, I have described clearly how to set up SAML with Rollbase and how to create key stores, all the encryption and stuff. So in this video, I'm going to assume that the basic setup of SAML has been there. So I'll just quickly walk through. So so this is my key store. This is the public certificate I'm going to give to the IDP. And in my shared properties, I have added the key store file, password, and alias. Uh, this key store comes into picture only when you use encryption. So with Okta, I'm going to show both the cases where the encryption is enabled and then the encryption is disabled. So so this is one of the customer I created. His name is Test Okta. So his authentication right now is password. Uh, so I'm going to change his authentication type to SAML. So before I come into these details, I'll show you the process of how we can uh, create a application in Okta. So once you create a Okta and you create a new application, you will have to fill some basic details. Um, so, okay, let me create a new application. There is this add application where you can specify, you can consider creating a new app which is supported by SAML. Use create. So app name test Okta 2 forward. In order to configure SAML, you have to give a single sign-on URL. The single sign-on URL is available in your SAML ACS. So this is the URL which you're supposed to give as the single sign-on URL. So yes, so this is the single sign-on URL, which is also known as the ACS URL. You can find it in just a minute. You can find it in our. We gave a couple of settings. Where SAML login URL is the URL which you are going to hit in order for SAML to be initiated. SAML ACS URL is the information you give to the IDP for him to redirect the response to a particular endpoint. So this is the endpoint which is supposed to be hit, and this is the endpoint which is supposed to be given to the IDP. Please don't get confused about this. And then once we give this to the app, it needs a SP entity ID. So all the IDPs recognize the SP by a unique ID. So that is nothing but the SP ID. So in this case, you can see that you can give whatever ID you want. You have to make sure that the ID here and the ID in the uh, IDP should be same. But the thing is, generally, you have an SP metadata which is configured by the master admin, and he provides you with an entity ID in the SP metadata. If it is not provided, you can give your own. Generally, it is given by the master admin. So once this is done, you need to create an attribute map. So attribute map is nothing but the first is the integration name in role base. The second is the parameter you're going to send from IDP. Login name is a compulsory parameter you're supposed to send. And identity provider login URL. This can be picked up from the file once you give the file. This file is nothing but the metadata file which Okta gives you. So for example, so default relay state is not necessary. Name ID format, application username, let it be in the same way as it is. So in the advanced settings, you can see that this is unencrypted. This is one way, and then there is encrypted. So these are the two ways by which authentication can happen. So the thing is, we are now going to do a simple uh, unencrypted way of doing stuff. So once you specify all these settings, let it be this way for now. You can add attributes. So as I mapped login name to login name in my role based instance, as you can see, login name is mapped to login name. I'm supposed to send an attribute named login name. So login name and the value will be, in my case, I'm going to take the user's email to be login name. This user is nothing but the IDP's user, Okta's user. So the first name, as I again gave it as first name there, I'm going to give it the user's first name. So now I have set up an app, basic app for setting up. You need to press next, and there will be a simple redirection. So if you accept that, you will have something like this. I already created an application, so I'm not going to create it again. So this is the app where this is the general settings. If you remember, these are the settings we put. In this case, we have considered to be encrypted, but now I'm going to change that to unencrypted first. So it again makes me go through the process. Configure SAML, show advanced settings. Once we remove the encrypted, it becomes the same as what I've shown. So these parameters are already existent as I showed you before. And then when I press next, it says stuff. Let's just finish it. So my setting up of role base in the IDP has been done. So now I go to role base. So IDP ID, how do we get this? And also this file. Because SPID, we have seen that we have given in the IDP ID and we got it here. It can be seen from SP metadata. The attribute map is something which we created and gave to the IDP also. So now all the details are regarding IDP, like issuer, which is IDP ID and IDP metadata. So where do we get this? So in order to get this, you just go to the app and then sign on. You can see that SAML2 is not configured. Identity provider metadata is available. So you can just go to this guy. A file is created. can save this. It's an XML file, which you can see. So you need to I created a file which is by the name of testokta.xml. So after creating that XML file, I just upload it here, and once I upload it, as you can see, there is a, let me open the XML file for you. In this test Okta, we have this entity ID, which is HTTP EXK823. That is the same entity ID which we are going to give here, EXK823. So based on the file, you upload the file here and you give the ID here. So once you give this and you save, all the configuration part is done. So in order to find your URL to hit, you just need to take this login URL, and then you're supposed to open a browser. Just hit login saml. So as you can see, the redirection is happening where now we are redirected to Okta, which is our IDP. So I'll give my Okta credentials. Test Okta at the rate. So once I hit this, the initiation of the login process happens. We have to make sure that there is a user with this particular username in our role-based instance, which I made sure. So once I hit sign in, it is going to uh, enable the authentication, find a user, and directly log into this user. If you can see, the name of this guy will be testokta@yahotmail.com. That's his email address and login name. So I created a user with a login name, and the input coming from the login name will be testokta@hotmail. So the authentication will be done. So that is how you do set up an IDP with Okta. What you have seen is a rather simple way, in the sense that there is no encryption involved in this. But if you want to just uh, do the encryption part, you just need to go to the Okta app, edit it, and as you've seen in the advanced settings, instead of unencrypted, just put encrypted. Now it asks for a encryption certificate. So every SP has an encryption certificate. So how this can be seen in the video I showed you in the first of the tutorial. There will be a detailed explanation of how to create a key store, how to get a public certificate from it. So I'm skipping all those. I'm considering that you have a public certificate and a key store. So once you have the public certificate, you can browse for it. So if you go here, if you can see that example.c here, you would have got something similar. So I add the certificate and then I press upload. So Okta does its stuff and the certificate gets uploaded. So now the encryption part has been enabled. So you can go finish this. And now if you try to log in back, so you need to be careful with the certificate and the encryptions, because if the encryptions or the certificate is wrongly generated, it'll give a error saying that cannot encrypt data or stuff like that. Actually, let me see the URL we have. Copy this, paste it, and hit enter. So now we'll be again redirected to the IDP. So here I give my credentials. As you can see, I logged in because the encryption has been done properly and the decryption has been done properly. So how do you get the public certificate? It is given by the master uh, tenant to all the tenants so that they can enable SAML with different IDPs. So in this tutorial, I gave a description about how to configure it with Okta IDP. If you have any doubts, please post it in the comments. Uh, yes, so if you want to get a clear idea of what this was a very fast tutorial because I created a very detailed one before in the video as I showed. This is just for knowing how to do stuff with the Okta IDP. Okta is widely used for IDPs, so that is why we created this. Okay, thanks.